This church leader tool is on the topic of the successful ministry ask, inviting someone to be part of a ministry or a project or a leadership opportunity, doing that in a way that is truly successful. And that might not immediately seem like a leadership function, but many times the first opportunity a growing leader has to become involved is by being asked. So I want to talk about that and how to do it in a successful way. And I want to start with something taught to me by a church leader named Gene Morris Trumbauer. Gene has written some books and done a number of workshops to help people in how to draw others into ministry. And I remember her sharing at this workshop that I attended her fourfold method of invitation. And I've actually added one to that, and I've also ranked them. But what she said at this workshop was that if you use this method to ask someone, they will never say no. In fact, she went on to say that we could ask for the price of the workshop back if the method was not successful. Well, of course, she was exaggerating, but what she was absolutely right about is a good ask is much more likely to get a good response. So she had these factors, and I have 5 for you now. So the most important aspect to a good ask is tell somebody the benefits. And that actually can go 2 different ways. It could be the benefits to your congregation or to your ministry. Tell them how they will contribute to the long-run success of your ministry. So a great example, a simple ask might be to ask someone to be a greeter or an usher. And you could just ask them, hey, would you be willing to be an usher or a greeter? Or you could say, would you be willing to be in this ministry that helps people to feel welcome as soon as they hit the door, to know that they belong in this community, whether they've been here for many years or they're here for the very first time, and really help to make them open to hearing what God has for them. Do you see how that benefit is much more successful? And you can also highlight the benefit for them, the blessing for them. So a ministry in many congregations is a lay visitor team. So say to somebody, you will very likely develop deep relationships on a deep Christian level with somebody else, and you'll be blessed by them. You're listing the benefits for them. So second thing to a good ministry ask is, what's the support? Don't let them think that they are going to be out there on their own. But what training will you provide? Who will be a supervisor or a reference if they need some help? Tell them what support you're going to offer. And of course, if there is no support, then build that in so that you can well support somebody who is willing to be involved. Third, tell them their gifts. You're likely asking them for a particular reason. Tell them why. Tell them the gifts that you see in them. Now, this isn't just buttering them up, but it's just being truthful, telling them what you see God doing in them. And if somebody is ever selected by a nominating team or a church council or another team of leaders, I always tell them, it wasn't just me, but a group of leaders thought that you would be good at this. So tell them what gifts you see in them. Fourth, tell them the responsibilities. Be clear about that. If it's a larger ministry, have that in writing. It doesn't have to be in the initial ask, but have it available so that they know what those responsibilities are. And I know some congregations where they even have the long page or multi-page and then the quick card that you can pull out. Here's the 7 things I got to do as a greeter or an usher or whatever that responsibility is. And then last, tell them the time commitment. It's the 5th one because I find it the 5th less important, but not unimportant, to let them know you are not going to serve in this ministry forever. On a quarterly or a yearly basis or whenever, let them know that they can step back and that that's perfectly acceptable. As well, how much time would it take for them to be involved in this ministry? Be clear with them about the time commitment. Otherwise, they'll become frustrated because there's a mixed expectation about how much time it takes. So that's a successful ministry ask. Now I want to add one other part, and that's what method are you using for your ministry ask? I've definitely worked with congregations who will say, oh, nobody wants to be involved in ministry here. And then you ask them, well, what method have you used? And they, well, we put a notice in the bulletin or the newsletter. Well, you used one of the least successful methods to ask. You could use better methods. Then and only then could you say people might not want to get involved. So I'm going to list these in least successful to most successful. And one of the things you'll notice about this list is it relies on relationships. Better relationship methods usually get a higher percentage of yes responses. So the worst one is, as I mentioned, the written announcement in your bulletin or newsletter. It's not a bad thing to do. It gets that information out. It might draw in the person you might not think to ask, but because it's low relationship, it's one of the least successful methods. A more successful method is a general personal, somebody standing up front of a meeting or a congregation and saying, would you be involved in? That's a little bit more personal, but it's still not as successful. An even more successful method is an email or a letter. I've kind of given these a tie. It kind of depends on the person. Some folks will respond better to the letter. Some folks, the email that they can immediately respond to gets a better response. But I think they're about equal in their percentage. Then an even better method is a personal phone call. That's you on the phone directly talking to that person. And we can see where that level of relationship is even deeper. And then finally is the face-to-face invite. Talking to somebody one-on-one and making that invite, again, using the 5 other factors, definitely helps get a better percentage. Doesn't make it 100%, but it is more successful. And in fact, I often use multiple methods. I'll use the in-person invite or request, but then I'll follow that up. I'll say, you don't have to answer now. I'll send you an email, and that's a place for you to be more specific about the benefits, support, gifts, responsibilities, and time commitment. And then sometimes they'll respond back to that email, or then it'll be another personal invite or the personal phone call. So you can combine those different methods. So I really hope that this teaching is helpful and it helps you get more yeses for whatever ministry you are inviting. As with many other church leader tools, I would love you to forward this on. This is a great tool to forward to other leaders so that all of your ministry asks get a higher percentage of yes, I'm ready to be used by God. Take care and God bless.